This is video of an alleged monster in court. This video is per KATV in Arkansas. Andrew James McGann stood before a judge today for the first time, accused of killing two parents who were hiking with their daughters in Devil's Den State Park. I have a ton of new information for you in this case today. We have surveillance video of McGann being arrested during a haircut. He was in the chair when detectives walked in. He was cuffed with the smock still around his neck. I'll also tell you what police say he told them in his interrogation. Here's video we received of McGann during his intake in the county jail. And then, on top of that, we have new information as well when it comes to his job as a teacher, because we have found another school district that seems to have hired him in recent years. This would be his fifth just since 2022. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Andrew James McGann made his first court appearance today in Arkansas. This is video of McGann in court today per KATV in Arkansas. He was in a jail jumpsuit, didn't say anything during the hearing that lasted little less than 3 minutes. He has yet to enter a plea, but with the way that law enforcement has been talking about their investigation, it seems they believe they have this man dead to rights. And that's not just a figure of speech, because prosecutors could go for the death penalty if he is convicted, and I'll get to what prosecutors said about the possibility of that in just a moment. And also, we are learning some new pieces of evidence that police say they have in this case. I'll talk about that in just a moment. We also have new video of McGann arriving at the Washington County Sheriff's Office in Arkansas after his arrest. The video is about 11 minutes long and was sent to us this morning by the Sheriff's Office. And you can see in this video he's wearing the same shirt as you see him wearing in the barbershop when he was arrested while he was getting a haircut. This is video that barbershop put out to the media of McGann sitting down in the chair, and you can see his hair is over his face. The barber said that they don't believe that he wanted anything cut off the top of his head because he was using his hair to cover his identity. Also, the barbershop told us that he wouldn't give his name when he first showed up, and it was about 4 minutes into his haircut that detectives entered. Those at the barbershop say they heard detectives ask McGann if the car he parked outside was his, and he said yes. Here's video of McGann walking into the barbershop. That dark car matches the description of the vehicle that police say he allegedly fled Devil's Den State Park in after murdering Cristen and Clinton Brink. The barber who was cutting McGann's hair when he was arrested went on News Nation last night. This is what she said when she was asked about what stood out to her.
As I was examining his hair, his scalp looked very dry and matted.
Interesting. Did he seem surprised that the cops were there for him, or because we've now heard the police have said that he has admitted to it, that he said, yes, I did this. Did he seem surprised when they got there?
So I believe it was a detective. I don't remember his name. He came in, asked, whose car that was. And, he had his head down the whole time. And he really didn't, say anything until they're like, I believe it's your car.
We are learning more information about the couple who lost their lives in this attack, and they're being called heroes for protecting their daughters, allegedly from McGann, who is armed with a knife in the woods of Devil's Den State Park, police say. It is important to know that Cristen and Clinton Brink, police say, did everything they could to protect their daughters. Now, this family had just moved to Arkansas from out of state. Clinton was going to start a new job on Monday as a milk delivery driver, just 2 days after his murder. They were in the park, like so many families are on the weekends, hiking with their daughters who are ages 7 and 9. We also learned they have a third daughter who wasn't with them on the day of the attack. Police say that when they were attacked, McGann allegedly first went at the father, Clinton Brink, with a knife. Cristen, the mom, then rushed her two children to safety. They say she then returned to try and help her husband, but that is when police say McGann attacked Cristen, taking her life. The two girls ran to a visitor center, and there they were able to call 911. Here's what authorities said about this family at their news conference per KATV.
They absolutely protected those girls to their fullest extent, to the point that it cost them their lives. We're in awe of this mom and dad. We're also in awe of these girls.
Police put out this image in the days after the murders, allegedly of McGann, and a sketch of a suspect as they searched for clues. They say they were able to identify the type of car that McGann was driving as a black Kia, and they found one registered to him that he allegedly drove to that haircut before his arrest. This is video of that car being searched in the parking lot of the barbershop in Springdale, Arkansas. Police say McGann has no criminal record, and it's unclear if he has any documented mental health history. Police don't know a motive yet, and they also say that this crime was totally random. McGann and the Brinks did not know each other and had never interacted before. Police feel very confident about the evidence they have in this case, and here's why. This is what they said during yesterday's news conference.
We did confirm this morning that our suspect's DNA has been a positive match to the DNA that we suspected to belong to our suspect at the scene. During an interview with investigators, the suspect indicated that he did commit these murders. We executed a search warrant at his residence. There were articles found there that are consistent with being involved in this particular crime.
Before we get back to the latest out of Arkansas, I need to pause this moment of On the Case and give a big shout out to Odoo for sponsoring today's Law and Crime YouTube takeover. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that provides a range of accounting, manufacturing, and sales applications. To grow a successful business, it is important to stay focused on the creative vision that matters, not get bogged down by things like invoicing and balancing the books. And that's where Odoo comes in. They are a one-stop shop game changer that gives users a clean, modern dashboard designed to provide all your business needs. Take Odoo's accounting tool. It utilizes smart AI to check balances, cash flow, vendor bills, and invoices all in one place. Or if you need help with manufacturing, Odoo's apps can actually sync your inventory to purchases and keep everything running smoothly in just a few clicks. From the assembly line to the sale, Odoo's easy-to-use software helps you manage it all. Right now, you can get a free 15-day trial of Odoo's all-in-one business solution to give your business the cutting edge. Head over to www.odoo.com/takeover. Police didn't go into more detail about what McGann specifically said to investigators during his interrogation and whether it was an outright confession. Now, as this horrifying case plays out now in the court system, there are some major questions when it comes to McGann's professional life. He was a public elementary school teacher, and we have found since 2022, McGann appears to have been employed by 5 different school districts in 3 different states. School was going to start in Arkansas next week, and that is where McGann was going to work in the Springdale public school system as an elementary school teacher. Here's a picture of a post that was deleted from the school's Facebook page that shows McGann as a new teacher. The Springdale School District told me that McGann never had contact with students or families because this was going to be his first year with them. Last year, McGann was reportedly a teacher in the Sand Springs, Oklahoma school district near Tulsa. That district released a statement to the media saying McGann resigned to move out of state. We've found, though, that Sand Springs was apparently the second school district he worked in just last year, because we found this picture on the Plano, Texas Independent School District Facebook page from August 2024, and it is a post that is welcoming back staff. And when you zoom in on the picture, there in the red polo shirt is Andrew James McGann. Now, it's unclear what the circumstances are surrounding his employment in Plano and why he left in potentially the middle or beginning of the school year to move to Oklahoma. I have reached out to both the Sand Springs and Plano school districts for comment, and at the time of this recording, I have not heard back. The year prior, McGann worked in the Broken Arrow, Oklahoma school system, which is also outside Tulsa, and he resigned after 1 year in that system to move out of state. This is the statement that the school district sent me. Then you have the school that McGann worked in 2022, and this would be the 5th school district that McGann worked in. This one was based in Flowery Branch, Texas, outside of Dallas, and this is another welcome to the team post by an elementary school that has since been taken down, introducing McGann, where he talks about his interests and tries to paint himself himself as that warm figure you would want teaching children. But this parent says he was the opposite. She says that McGann acted inappropriately to girls in the class, and he was allowed to resign without punishment. We've reached out to this school district. We have also not heard back from them for their side of that story. Arkansas authorities say more will be done to look through McGann's past since he moved so often in the past couple of years. He is now facing 2 counts of capital murder. Arkansas is a death penalty state, and this is what the prosecuting attorney for Washington County, Arkansas said about the possibility of the death penalty if McGann is convicted.
This case certainly has the aggravators that exist where a jury should get to decide what the punishment for this defendant is. It is my intention to pose that to a jury.
McGann is being held without bond. His next court appearance is scheduled for August 25th. Joining me now is retired FBI agent and attorney Bobby Chacon. Thank you for taking the time to be with us as always on Law and Crime. This suspect is just, everybody does. I just find him so disturbing with the things we're learning about him. What stands out to you with just kind of the initial profile we're getting of Andrew James McGann?
Well, I think like a lot of people, I'm struck by the randomness of the attack and the senselessness of it. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a jealousy. It wasn't a stalking thing. The randomness of it, no connection to these people at all. They're out on a hike on a normal sunny day with their 2 kids, in an area where people just do that kind of activity. They hike, and you should be able to enjoy the day. And suddenly, some random, unconnected maniac appears and stabs these people to death violently and viciously. That's really what struck me, the fact that this was so random, so senseless, and so disconnected. It's kind of frightening because, it could have been any of us walking on that path at that time, and so I think that's what I'm most concerned with, the randomness of it.
Yeah, and he gets arrested at a barber shop, and he's driving. What also stood out to me is he's still driving this Kia, this black Kia that is what he fled the scene with. And investigators said that they looked up once they knew it was a Kia Stinger, I think it's called. They find his name as one of those that are now in the area. And it seems like he just didn't try to hide a lot of what do you make of that part of it, where it's not like he was on the run?
Yeah, unfortunately, Chris, I mean, what I make of it is this may not be his first rodeo. I think he was very comfortable that he wasn't going to get caught, because when we now see that the police did a search warrant back at his residence, they found evidence consistent with him committing the crime. So he didn't clean himself. He didn't wash things or ditch things or get rid of things. He was very calm when he was arrested on that video. It seemed like he just did not expect to get caught, and he was very comfortable, which leads me to think that he may have done this before.
How do you at this point, because he's worked in 3 different states. Well, he didn't start the job in Arkansas, but Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. And then who knows, prior to 2022, what is the process now for law enforcement in trying to make sure that this wasn't a first time, or making sure that there's not something in the past that criminal that he's done?
Yeah, so there's two teams that will probably be working this, right? One team has to focus on the murders in Arkansas of this young couple and the children witnessed, and they have to be solely focused on that because now he's in court, he's entitled to certain rights, speedy trial, things like that. So that will move along in the court system. You have to have the team dedicated to that. They searched his apartment, all the evidence. They can't be unfocused. They have to be focused on that. Anything any possible prior activity, crimes and such probably won't be relevant to that Arkansas case. The second team is going to be focused on what else he may have been doing prior. So they're probably gathering all the evidence that they're looking at in Arkansas for that case, and then hopefully sharing it with authorities in Oklahoma, in Texas, in any other places where he might have lived for any period of time, and say, do you have any unsolved attacks, maybe murders, that seemed random and that were never solved? Do you have anything like that? And maybe do you have DNA? Because now they have this guy's DNA that they could run through other crimes that they may have, unknown DNA. And since he's not in the criminal justice system, they may not get hits. But now they have his DNA here in Arkansas, and they can make that direct comparison on any similar type of attacks. Some maybe murders. Doesn't even have to be murders. Any attacks like this where it was random, the victims didn't know the person, they just appeared out of nowhere and they were attacked. So I would definitely have a team working on that, dedicated to that. Not the case in Arkansas, but dedicated to looking at his prior places where he lived, and maybe you'll find something.
His teaching career, you don't see teachers move around as much as he has in just the last couple of years. What stands out to you about the stints that he had and where he was working?
Yeah, I mean, it does stand out to me because teachers, while they sometimes move around within a school district or even within a state, they stay within that same pension system. That's the benefit of teaching. And we know we don't pay our teachers enough, but at least at the end of their careers, hopefully they'll have a benefit of some type of pension. But you have to stay within a state to kind of gain that time of seniority and stuff. It really surprised me that he's moving from state to state. Now he's in his third state in 3 or 4 years, his third or fourth or fifth different school. At least one of which we know now he was let go because of behavioral problems in the classroom. So really, he's been very transient. We all have our favorite teachers. I've had favorite teachers when I was in elementary school. I still remember them, and they were there for years, 15, 20, 25 years. That's the kind of profession it is. Teachers are very dedicated. This guy seemed to be moving around a lot into different schools and even different states for a teacher that wants to kind of have an impact on young people. I think he was a fifth grade teacher, and that's kind of, you're moving from that, the ABCs to really kind of learning and getting them motivated towards learning before they enter secondary school or middle school. And so it's really surprising to me that he moved around so much. It doesn't seem like, teaching was his calling. It seems like he was using a profession like teaching to move around, because teachers can get employed anywhere. If you have your teaching certificate, even if you move to a different state, you can apply online and get your teaching certificate there. Kind of like nursing could move from state to state. My whole family is nurses. And so you can, it's one of those professions where you can move around and still be employed. It's not specific to a location. So it kind of told me that he wanted to work, but he wanted to be able to move around quite often. And obviously that's what he was doing.
I think also the image of who was then the person of interest when it was first put out, of the person from behind, and they're just dressed in all black, and he had these like fingerless gloves on when all this happened, apparently, to have like the kind of comparison of like the teacher photos he has where he's smiling and he's trying to look super warm, and then he's dressed as like what you would imagine a predator, a killer, a monster would be dressed as to commit this type of crime. Just when you look at suspects like this in these cases, how is it that they're able to live what appears to be just two completely separate lives?
Well, I mean, normally, look, if this was a teacher that you told me was employed by the same school district for the last 10 years and has kids that are, remember him from years ago that now, attribute their success academically to one of these teachers that they had in the fifth grade, that would be one thing. But the fact that this guy was moving around from school to school to school tells me he probably wasn't a good teacher. I mean, that's the first sign. He probably wasn't a good teacher. He probably wasn't a very dedicated teacher. He probably wasn't really connected with his students because, people stay in the same school because they teach one child and then they may teach the sibling of that child. I mean, I had teachers in middle school that had taught my older brother and sister. I was the third one in my immediate family being taught by the same teachers. So, he didn't seem to be that type of teacher. And so it immediately told me that this is not the kind of teacher that, you would be surprised at if they committed this crime. It seems like he was using his profession for another purpose. And, we could find that that's what was happening.
And if this isn't the first, we don't know. And Arkansas authorities have said that they are, and with the FBI, going to be looking into, everything we're talking about of the work in the different states. But I'm not going to say how likely is it, because I don't want to speculate too much, but for it to be the first time to suddenly dress like a ninja and go into the woods with a knife and attack a family, what would you be looking for to think of what built up to the point where he would have done this?
Well, I'd be looking for things in his apartment, and I'd be looking at his computer searches and things like that. So, what did they find? Did they find anything that could be considered like a token or a souvenir or a trophy kind of thing? So I'd be looking at that, because if he is, and this is speculation on my part, and I've been wrong before, but if he has committed these things before, there's a reason why psychologically he would do that. And so you would look at, did he keep anything from the past places that he lived and what types of things he kept. We already know that they found knives in his apartment. We don't know whether he found the motor weapon. They haven't revealed that yet. But they did say they found things in his apartment consistent with at least this Arkansas murder. So they found evidence in there. So he wasn't the kind of guy that completely ditched all the evidence right after the crime. He was keeping things. Now, why do you do that? There's a number of reasons why you do that. But, I would be looking for anything he had in his possession that relate to the prior areas where he lived and worked.
Seems like prosecutors will go for the death penalty if he's convicted of these crimes. What are some of the things that need to be proven for it to reach that point where he would actually face that type of sentence?
Well, I mean, obviously premeditation, and then usually there's, with a deadly, if you carry it out with a deadly weapon, if you do it like here in California, if you do it for greed, for financial gain, things like that, there are what we call in California special circumstances. So murder with special circumstances. So I haven't looked at the Arkansas law, but it's usually murder plus, and the plus could be a number of different things. Here in California, it's financial gain, or it's using a deadly weapon, something like that. So I'm sure that his actions here, and certainly the prosecutor has intimated that his actions here do qualify for a seeking of the death penalty. I mean, he obviously premeditated. He carried the murder weapon with him. This wasn't an argument. It wasn't road rage. It was anything but. And so he carried the weapon with him. He sped away. He knew he was going to either attack and or kill someone that day on that trail. And unfortunately, this loving couple with these great kids happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, and to think they had just moved to Arkansas, they were just enjoying the outdoors, and he was going to start, Clinton Brink was going to start a new job on Monday, delivering milk in Springdale, Arkansas. Yesterday, authorities said they have DNA, they believe links McGann to this crime. They also say that during his interrogation, he admitted that he did this. And yet here he is in court. He has a public defender. From his standpoint, I mean, from the defense's standpoint on this, how do they approach this case if they have him on video saying that he did it and he's been Mirandized and all of that and DNA, what happens next?
Yeah, I know people get a little frustrated. How could he stand up there and plead not guilty? Now, he hasn't entered a plea yet. He probably will next week. I think there's another court appearance next week where he has to enter a plea. I wouldn't be surprised if he does enter a not guilty plea, even though, and people say, why and how can he do that? Well, the lawyer's just protecting him in a way that, if they're going to seek a plea deal, and I hate to use the word deal because, the prosecutor might have all the cards in this case, so he may plead to an indictment. Usually they don't plead to, and as we just saw in Idaho, they don't plead to the death penalty, although some have wanted the death penalty. Some killers that I've been associated with have wanted the death penalty. But so what they do is they plead not guilty so that they can then start entering into negotiations with the prosecutor's office about what kind of things the prosecutor would accept as part of a guilty plea. And so that's the negotiations that will start taking place with his public defender, because we saw in the court today, there was what they call an indigent affidavit, which means he can't afford his own lawyer. And then part of Miranda is if you can't afford a lawyer, the court will appoint you one. And that's what happened today. He filled out an affidavit that said, I swear to this and I can't afford a lawyer. And the court appointed him one. In this case, the public defender's office. And so he's got a lawyer, and between the public defender's office and the prosecutor's office, they will start negotiating how we get this guy to plead guilty and what conditions it is. Now, of course, the strength of the case gives leverage to one side or the other. In this case, it seems like all the leverage is with the prosecutor's office. They already have apparently a videotaped confession. They have DNA from the crime scene that goes back to his apartment and his own DNA at the crime scene. So I think that, the prosecutor's office is in a strong position. And so it's going to be interesting to see what kind of deal they come up with. And now, if he does, in fact, plead not guilty in court next week, it's really only to give his public defender's team the time to negotiate that kind of deal with the prosecutor's office.
And the prosecutors are not required to offer a deal. If they wanted, they say, we want this to be a death penalty situation. Like they don't have to pick up the phone and call.
That's right. They don't. And normally it is defense, as we just saw in Idaho, it is the defense that picks up the phone and calls and says, hey, what kind of deal are you willing to what kind of deal are you willing to even offer if we were to go down that road? And no, but obviously it's a deal. The prosecutor doesn't have to offer a deal, and the defense doesn't have to accept a deal. It's the defense right to go to trial and make the government prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed this crime, and he has no obligation to put forth a defense or why or anything. He has no obligation to say anything. He could just sit there quiet, not say a word, and make the government prove its burden beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, in this case, of course, we're hearing that he's already confessed, and so that kind of much more changes that dynamic. And so going forward, it's not a case, I don't think, where he's not going to be trying to fight it and try to go to trial, unless we start hearing that his defense team, sometimes they file a motion to overturn the confession, that it was gained through coercion, or he didn't know what he was saying, or whatever. That so that becomes good police work if you make sure you Mirandize him on camera and that he understands his rights and all that kind of stuff. But the defense sometimes tries to have that thrown out, has the confession thrown out. If we see a not guilty plea next week followed by a motion to suppress the video confession, then that's more of an indication that he's now going to try to fight it. But we'll see in time.
And this sadly happened on Saturday, but it's been less than a week. Authorities were able to make an arrest. They seem to have a lot of evidence already in this case. What do you make of the police work that was done? Because I think a lot of times we take for granted what goes into making these type of arrests and these types of cases. What do you make of how authorities in Arkansas handled this week?
I thought it was amazing police work because there's no association between the victim and the perpetrator, and there's no association between the perpetrator and this park. In other words, he wasn't a guy that hiked there every week or whatever. So when you have those two random things, it's very hard to figure out who your suspect pool is, who falls into the suspect pool. But in this case, it was another lightning fast arrest in a complicated murder case that you have randomness to. And I believe, and I said it initially, and the police have actually said it as well, is that those two little girls provided crucial details to start the police on the road to finding who this guy was. That and the witnesses in the parking lot of that park where the trailhead was, who saw the vehicle. And so I think those two little girls are heroes. The mother's a hero. She apparently escorted them out to safety, probably back towards the parking lot when, she probably saw people in the parking lot and told the daughters to run towards those people, and then went back to try to help her husband, and then was unfortunately was murdered with him. But I think that it was great police work, all started by those two little girls, 7 and 9 years old. God bless them and keep them in your prayers, because they're going to need a lot of help based on what they've witnessed and the trauma that they're now facing now and probably in their future. And so I think that it was lightning fast police work. They found out who this guy was. They made the arrest. They did the search warrant. They got the evidence they need. I mean, all, like I said, lightning fast, and in such a random crime. I give a lot of credit to the police in this case. I give a lot of credit to those little girls and all the witnesses that, came forward so quickly and gave detailed and accurate descriptions to get this guy off the street, because, there were many more people in danger if this guy stayed out.
Yeah, and he was going to be in a classroom with children once again next week if he had not been arrested. Just a scary story and well put about these parents and everything they did to protect their daughters in that moment. Bobby Chacon, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.